What
some
are we
AEW
talking about?
stuff.
Are we going to talk about the AEW ladies angle here in the division? Is that what you'd like to tackle?
I would like to talk about it just because there have been comments in my mentions on Twitter.
I'd like to hear your take on it.
Well, and I realize, and I've talked about, I think we hit on it last week too. Obviously, as women, we sometimes view storylines differently than other people do, and we don't speak for all women. Mel and I may not always see storylines the same way.
We don't speak for all women.
Yeah, contrary to popular belief, we don't.
We
and so
literally represent
so
one people, female genitalia each.
So some right. So some people may not see the situation the way that I do. I don't know that Mel even agree. Once we talk about this, if Mel will agree with what I have to say, maybe she's gonna be like,
"Girl fight."
So it could be. So this week we got more towards the way that they're angling the AEW women's division, at least on Dynamite. Prior to the women's match, there was a promo, or it was a video segment of Toni Storm, Saraya, and Shida. And Shida was like, they were kind of like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why would you throw a kendo stick into the ring? What are you doing? But then Toni makes the comment to Saraya that the AEW women live in a bubble and they don't know what we know. And that rubbed me the wrong way. and that's my issue. So then and I'll get back to this in a second. So then we see the match and it's Toni versus Willow. Toni wins. They beat the crap out of Saraya gets in the ring. She starts attacking Willow. Toni attacks Willow as well. Shida just stands there because she doesn't know what to do because she's obviously
she was already told she was scorned. She was told to stay backstage.
She was there, and then Ruby comes out and she saves Willow because Willow has been her partner. However, they seem to be setting this feud up as AEW originals versus ex-WWE wrestlers.
I don't know if they're because remember we mentioned a few weeks back where I actually said it just randomly because I realized that as we were talking, I was like, well, that would be all WWE women versus whatever. And I wasn't making some sort of prediction or anything. I was just saying that would end up being that way. And then we sort of got that, and it reeks of an invasion angle a little bit.
Which I guess isn't horrible. It's just depending on how they go about it, because which is Brad also brings it up, and I'll get to Dawson's comments in a minute, because the feud is not the problem. It's how they're going about it, which is what Brad says. I don't hate the idea of the story, but they're going about it the wrong way, which is how I feel about it. I don't, because Saraya already got some heat in her program with Britt when she said, she's like, what have you ever done? You've only been in AEW. I'm like, ma'am, they're paying you to work in this division, so you're here. You could have gone back to WWE because apparently they wanted you back. So, and then she gets into this whole, I've wrestled in Japan, I've wrestled blah, blah. Of course, yes, she has done all those things, but to take away, AEW has already had an issue with their women's division. It's been their biggest flaw, or one of their bigger flaws, has been how they present the women. They can't quite get their footing. It seems like the last few weeks, they've really been on a roll with things. They've really seemed to pick things up. And then I feel like this kind of takes it back a little bit, because it is very, it comes off as very Stanford to me. It feels like Saraya is relying on what she learned in that company. And then you've got, and another interesting point is WWE treated Saraya terribly. They treated Toni terribly. Toni straight up left.
She just Toni plane terribly.
And Toni got on a plane and didn't come back. And you're sitting here, so it just feels like and the question is, and so Daza pointed this out, is if Ruby will join up with Toni and the three-way to assault Britt. That's where I'm wondering, there's so many things that is at play here. So there's the whole thing with Britt. And then where does that leave Britt and Jamie? Because if Jamie is not really an original, but she wasn't WWE either. but she's a heel, and they've kind of had the Britt Jamie thing where we think Jamie is we thought Jamie was going to turn on Britt finally. So
eventually,
how Jamie turns on Britt is because Jamie is going to go join the AEW OGs, and she's going to leave Britt. And then Ruby obviously is ex-WWE as well. So does she stay with Willow, or does she go on this side? So I don't like the way they're going about it. I think
I agree with Brad. I think I agree with the idea is cool, but the execution thus far is essentially, we've been to WWE, so we're better than you, and you've never done it.
How it comes across.
You've never done anything before.
Right, when they literally built that division from nothing, which is
MJF
huge.
out there doing the same thing where he's burying the company as part of his storyline.
Right.
It's
one of the
not a good look right now. Like, I don't like it. It's like, you should be talking about AEW.
Right.
You
and that
should
was
not be talking about WWE.
Yeah. And one of the big concerns was, a lot of people complained about how AEW talked about WWE too much in their promos, and they did this and that. And then, obviously they bring in Danielson, they bring in Adam Cole, they bring in Kyle O'Reilly, Samoa Joe. Like, they bring in all of these, which that's a dumb argument anyway, because there's only so many places that you can wrestle in America. So that argument's fair. But then, so if that's your argument, then you're turning right back around and you're doing the same thing all over again, where even if they don't mention WWE by name, we know what Saraya means.
We know what they're saying.
Right. And yes, and Saraya, I guess in Saraya's case, she did come from, a wrestling family in England. And so that can so she could kind of go that way with, that's what I meant, was I didn't mean from WWE. I meant I had all this background. I come from a wrestling family. I have a movie made about my family. That whole thing.
I come from a carny stock, and I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, they talk about nepotism in Hollywood, and then there's
wrestling. Are you kidding? Come on. So, it's all nepotism.
Brad said he's like to see Ruby stay with the AEW Women so she can say how AEW saved her. Like, I wouldn't be mad about that.
That'd be all right.
Yeah, I think Ruby should
kind of be anti sort of like, what you girls are saying over there is ridiculous. That's, to prove it, I'm going to stay with the OGs.
Yeah. So Daza said, isn't this to get the AEW crowd? Well, yes, of course, because it's heel work, which somebody apparently people were trying to mansplain heel work to me the other day, and I'm not saying that Daza is. But yes, of course it is to get the AEW. That is the point. And they are stuck up snobs, and yes, and I get all of that, but I don't think you have to lessen the division you're in to do that. Like, you don't have to makes the AEW women's division seem second tier or third tier. And then at this point, we don't. So some people are wondering if this leads to Mercedes coming in and she joins the Invaders or whatever. But then if you're shitting on the women's division, why would Mercedes want to come to that? Like, if you look at it in that way, like, I get both sides. Like, I get where they're going. I just don't, like Brad said, I don't like how they're getting there.
The execution.
And it does seem like this is how they're going to get to a blood and guts match, probably. Or some sort of that would be awesome. Like, that's not my issue. My issue is how they're how they're talking about the AEW women's division, when that division has already struggled. People constantly accuse Tony of hating the women. He struggles to do anything with them, and they start getting some momentum, and then it's,
well, now they have a good feud between two factions, and the first thing they do is go, you haven't done anything, and we've been in awesome land.
Right. We've wrestled everywhere. We've done this, and we've done, like, yes, you have, but it just feels very condescending. And I don't like, maybe as the story progresses, maybe they'll get away from that a little bit. But the early stuff that they're doing, I'm not really a fan of. I just don't like the making, like, saying that what Britt Baker has done, or Sheeta, or Thunder Rosa, or Serena Deeb, for that, like, any of these women that they've done nothing for 3 years, that they built a brand.
I mean, in some ways you could argue Jade, because for as much heat as she takes for that, like, people love her. They love her presentation. There's a whole section of people that aren't looking at her wrestling. They're just looking at her. Like,
right. And, and I even wondered if so she's the 49-0 now. 50-0 is coming. We've talked about what happened when are they going to do the one. So what if Jade loses while this storyline is continuing? Does she go join the AEW originals? Because she is very much an original. I mean, she has wrestled nowhere else but
she could almost kind of like be a Jericho figure where she took over all the way and made like a faction. I mean,
yeah, I mean, because Jade is somebody who has,
and she doesn't have to wrestle as much.
She like she's trained, like QT was talking about like the people he trained, because we talked about it a few weeks ago about how they were complaining about AEW originals. And she was like, and he was like, I've literally trained her in this ring. Like, Jade didn't have any really prior training to this. And when you even look at Anna Jay had, I think, 7 independent matches ever before she signed to AEW. Wow. And so like she is an original, but she's in JAS, but Ty is not. Ty got her start in WWE. Another woman they could not figure out what to do with in WWE. That was one of the biggest things, was how WWE presented Ty Conti when she was there. And she obviously used to Ty Mello now, but like that was a complaint then, was, that the Performance Center didn't know what they were doing with her. And then she comes to AEW, and she, before JAS, was seeming to be on an ascent, and she was doing really well. And so do they get those women involved? Does Anna go to the original side and you see Ty over here? But Anna's a heel. So does she go? So, I mean, and these two women may not be involved at all. They may just focus on, the women we're seeing right now and do the storyline. But then also there's where's Mercedes Martinez? I don't know that she wrestled, she lost her title and has not wrestled since. So and she was ROH for a really long time. And so, does she come in? You could argue that she's an AEW original.
An indie show recently.
Was she? I don't know.
I feel like I heard
she may have, and I may have missed it. It's possible.
I just feel like she wrestled somewhere recently, or I heard someone say, because her name, obviously, it's a flag for us. So it's one of those things, when I hear her name, I'm like,
yeah. So Daza says Jade coming out and standing with Britt, Jamie, Sheeta, etc. would be a huge pop. I agree.
I tend to agree with that. Because I think it would be kind of different and surprising, and I don't know if people like love it or hate it, but that would make it better.
Yeah.
Would do exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah. So Daza says, I think that whatever they're doing with the Hills and Faces alignment shouldn't matter, like when WWE did the feud with Nexus. Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And so I guess that does kind of go out the window in this situation, especially when AEW, when these women are being attacked for not doing anything, which it also reminds me a little bit of the Ronda Rousey bullshit about how when she was calling people do nothing bitches, which drove me insane. And that feels like that's what they're saying. And I don't like it. I do not like it. Like, we've got to figure out a way to get around this without cheapening what the work of the women who came prior to them, who have been here since day one or pretty early on. Like, they've got to find a way to get away from that part of the story. And I think the story will be better. Like, I like the possibilities. Like, I don't hate, like, I think there could be so many cool things that come out of this. And then we get feuds afterwards, hopefully. And we're getting more women involved and getting more women TV time. Like, I love all of that. I just don't like the part of we're ex-WWE, we're better than you. And you haven't done shit.
So here's the thing, is that primarily it's men that watch over women. So I wonder, and this is just wondering out loud, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, if they're going this route because it's more something boys would react to than the girls would.
See, that's just, and it could be. Well,
I mean, but good with the bad, at least they're paying attention, and they won't get up and leave during the thing, and they'll give women's wrestling a chance. And that's right. Like I'm wondering, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I wonder.
Maybe they should consult someone who has helped run women's divisions before. Like maybe somebody named Maria.
Woman?
Maybe Maria. They ask her how to handle this situation.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Can a woman really handle that kind of decision making?
Oh, and that also reminds me, speaking of women who make decisions.
Sorry.
That's funny. I'm
totally kidding.
I know you are. Somebody made the comment. I didn't feel this way, but I can see how it may have come off. Somebody made a comment that it felt like Stephanie McMahon when she said that she created the women's division. Women's in WWE is how that storyline, how that comment from Saraya and Toni, that came off to them like Stephanie McMahon.
That vibe.
And I was like, I didn't quite get that vibe, but I can see
it.
I can see it. And if they keep down this route, it's really going to start looking like that. But yeah, so maybe it is. Maybe they are just laying into the tropes of women can't get along and they're catty and all this other dumb, outdated bullshit because that's what men are used to. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Maybe they can. I mean, hopefully they're taking as much liberty as they can. Jamie Hayter's like over with people, so let her do her thing. Like, let her have the mic like you would let Jon Moxley have the mic when he's champion or whatever. I don't know.
They don't like to give her the microphone.
Let her do her thing or keep this thing going where she turns on Britt because she, whatever.
Yeah, so that's what so are they putting that storyline on hold to put, because we see, so Wednesday night,
I don't know, it's long-term storytelling, so it's hard to tell.
That story has been going on way too damn long, but where was I going with this? So Wednesday, yes. Wednesday, we're getting Britt versus Ruby versus Toni, I believe, is the match that we're getting on Wednesday. So right. Britt is kind of she's in this story, but it's kind of been like, it'll be interesting to see what Britt does, because Saraya basically was attacking Britt once again by saying, like, you haven't done anything with this division, even though you helped put this division on the map. But sure, what do I know? Dazzle says if Britt could destroy Saraya in a spirited promo putting over AEW, maybe that would be where some of this, maybe it depends on how it's done, I guess. It could potentially, I mean, there's a lot of potential here. It's just getting there. Dazzle says we will get the new X-Men movies before we get Hayter versus Britt. Apparently, we're going to get The Rock versus Roman Reigns before that. And The Rock versus Roman Reigns is apparently not happening at WrestleMania now. So